still remember the way the ink looked under the kitchen light. It wasn't mine. My hand never formed letters that neat, that deliberate. The Margaret Turner on those papers had been written with the kind of care I hadn't used in years, as though my daughter had studied the rhythm of my name until she could wear it like a mask. I sat at the table staring at it, the folded wedding toast still crushed in my lap. I had carried those words for months tucked in my purse, rewritten on scraps, whispered into mirrors. I thought they would be the last gift I could give her on her wedding day. Instead, they rotted in my hands like something dead. Denise stood across from me, arms folded, the weight of her silence heavy. She was a woman who worked in documents every day, birth certificates, land deeds, property transfers. Her job was the language of proof. She didn't have to tell me what I already knew. My daughter had stolen my name, and with it, my dignity. I kept waiting for the rush of anger, but what came first was numbness, like the dull ache after a tooth has been pulled. I thought of Olivia as a little girl, sticky fingers gripping my arm in the grocery store, the way she used to slip her drawings under my pillow at night. That child wouldn't have cut me out of her wedding. That child wouldn't have erased me. But the woman she became, I realized I hadn't recognized her in a long time. 2 nights earlier, she had sat me down at her kitchen table, the same way I now sat at mine, and delivered the verdict. "Mom," she said, her voice brittle and rehearsed, "it's better if you don't come. You'll only embarrass me. No explanation beyond that. No room for appeal." She said it like she was making a business decision. Her eyes flat, Ethan, hovering behind her, like a man waiting for a storm to pass. I had laughed at first, thinking it was nerves a joke. But Olivia didn't laugh. She just stared until the sound died in my throat. Now staring at the forged signature, I realized that conversation had been more than cruelty. It had been strategy. "Denise," I whispered, though my voice barely reached her. "This can't be legal." "It's not," she said. Her eyes softened, but her jaw stayed tight. "She used your name on loan documents. Wedding expenses, maybe more. If anyone calls in the debt, they won't come for her. They'll come for you." The words sank slow, heavy like stones into water. For years I'd let Olivia handle things I didn't understand, online forms, medical bills, the kind of paperwork that made my eyes blur. I thought it was trust. I thought it was what mothers did when daughters grew capable. It never occurred to me that trust could be a weapon. I looked at the toast in my lap, the words blurred from my own sweat. I had planned to begin with a story about her first bike ride, about how she fell twice and got back up without crying. It was supposed to be my way of telling her she was strong, that I believed in her. Instead, she had erased me from the story altogether. My words were unwanted, my presence an embarrassment, my name a tool for her convenience. "I should call her," I said, but the words tasted sour, even as I spoke them. Call her, and what? Beg her for mercy, ask her why she did it. I knew the answer already. Olivia wanted freedom from me, freedom from the reminder of where she came from. Denise shifted her weight, the floor creaking under her shoes. "Think carefully, Maggie. If you confront her now, she'll deny it. She'll say you're mistaken, that you're trying to sabotage her big day, and everyone will believe her, not you. You need proof more than this." The thought made me sick. Proof. Against my own daughter. As though I were preparing for a courtroom battle instead of a wedding celebration. But maybe that's what this was, one woman's fight to remain real in the eyes of her only child. I pressed the toast flat on the table, smoothing the wrinkles. The paper tore slightly at the fold, a small wound that mirrored the one splitting open inside me. I imagined standing at the reception, raising my glass, watching Olivia in her white dress beam at everyone but me. It was supposed to be our moment. Instead, I was here, erased, betrayed in ink. I thought of calling Ethan, but the memory of his silence stopped me cold. He had been there when Olivia uninvited me. He had stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, eyes on the floor. A man choosing neutrality, as though neutrality wasn't cruelty in itself. He wouldn't save me. He wouldn't even admit what he knew. I folded the toast again, smaller this time, until it fit into my palm. My hand trembled, but my voice was steady when I spoke. "She doesn't want me there, Denise. She's made that clear." Denise leaned forward, her eyes searching mine. "Maybe not, but she's not taking your name, Maggie. Not like this." Not without a fight. A fight. The word struck me like a bell reverberating in the empty kitchen. I wasn't ready for war, but war had already found me. My daughter had turned me into a ghost at her wedding, a signature on a page, a story without a voice. And ghosts, I realized, don't stay silent forever. I used to believe a smile could fix anything. When Olivia was little and scraped her knee, I'd smile big and bright, even while holding back tears, until she laughed through her pain. When bills stacked high and cupboards sat half empty, I smiled at her across the dinner table so she'd think we were fine. Smiles were armor. They were proof that I could carry both of us even when my back was breaking. So in the days before her wedding, I practiced smiling in the bathroom mirror. I smoothed my hair, pinned it behind my ears, and lifted the corners of my mouth like a performer rehearsing for a play. I wanted to look like a mother worth showing off. My cheeks ached from the effort, but I kept trying, tilting my head, softening my eyes. Maybe if I could just get it right, she wouldn't be ashamed of me. That's when Olivia walked in. She leaned against the doorway, arms folded, her voice sharp with the kind of amusement that cuts deeper than anger. "What are you doing?" "Mom?" Heat rushed to my face. I dropped the smile instantly as if she had caught me stealing. "Just getting ready, practicing for Saturday." Her eyes narrowed. "Practicing what?" "Looking normal." The words hung heavy in the air. I opened my mouth, closed it again. My hands trembled at my sides. She had said it casually like an offhand joke, but the cruelty underneath was deliberate. She wanted me to know I was the blemish on her perfect picture. "Olivia," I whispered, forcing steadiness into my voice, "it's your wedding. I just want to make you proud." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You'll make me nervous. You'll say something embarrassing, or wear something outdated, or—" She broke off, shaking her head, as though even imagining me there spoiled the vision in her mind. I wanted to argue, to remind her of all the nights I stayed up sewing costumes for school plays, or the times I skipped meals so she could eat before exams. But when I glanced past her, I saw Ethan standing in the hallway. He leaned against the wall, his gaze fixed on the floor. He didn't speak, didn't defend me, didn't even acknowledge me. His silence was confirmation. Olivia straightened, as if rehearsing her vows. "Mom, let's just agree. It's better if you don't come." Her voice carried the same rehearsed tone she'd used when she cut me out days later. This was practice for cruelty, and she was getting better at it. I tried to laugh, though it came out broken. "You can't be serious. I'm your mother. You'll ruin everything," she said flatly, then turned and walked away. Ethan followed, silent as ever, leaving me with my reflection, a woman trying to smile through humiliation. I stood there staring at myself in the mirror. The face looking back wasn't proud or joyful. It was tired, lined with years of sacrifice eyes, shadowed by disappointment. I touched the corner of my mouth, but the smile wouldn't return. Later that night, I sat at the kitchen table and unfolded the toast again. The words blurred in the dim light, my handwriting cramped and uneven. The first line read, "To my Olivia, my greatest joy, my brightest star." My throat tightened as I read it. How foolish those words felt now. My star had dimmed me out of existence. Denise called, her voice gentle but urgent. "Maggie, I think you need to look into your accounts." "What do you mean?" I asked, though. Dread already curdled in my stomach. "There are whispers at the clerk's office. Your name came up on documents tied to wedding expenses. I can't say more without seeing them myself." "Just check." "Okay." I pressed the phone tight against my ear, the silence stretching long after she hung up. First humiliation, now suspicion. The pieces hadn't clicked yet, but I felt them shifting, forming a picture I didn't want to see. The next morning, I tried again to practice my smile. But no matter how I curved my lips, my eyes betrayed me. They weren't the eyes of a proud mother preparing for her daughter's big day. They were the eyes of a woman being erased. At work, I caught myself staring at other mothers in the grocery line, their carts filled with champagne and flowers, chatting about their children's weddings. I felt like an imposter among them. My daughter didn't want me near hers. She wanted me invisible. That night, I dreamed of Olivia as a child again, standing on a stage at her first recital. She froze under the light, scanning the crowd until she saw me. I smiled, and she steadied. Back then, my presence gave her courage. Now it was something she wanted to scrub away. The shift was quiet, like a door closing behind me. I realized the wedding wasn't just a celebration I'd been left out of. It was a stage she didn't want me on. She wasn't ashamed of the dress I'd wear or the words I'd say. She was ashamed of me. I folded the toast one final time, pressing it into the back of a drawer. The words would never see the light of day. Olivia had made sure of that. What I didn't know yet, what I couldn't let myself imagine, was that this was only the first erasure. The invitation never came. I waited day after day, watching the mailbox, as if a white envelope might arrive and undo everything she had said. Neighbors mentioned their daughters' weddings, the flowers, the music, the rehearsal dinners. I smiled politely, nodding, but inside I felt like an imposter in my own life. My daughter was getting married, and I wasn't even on the guest list. When I finally asked Olivia about it, she didn't hesitate. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "There's no invitation, Mom. You don't fit in with Ethan's family. You wouldn't understand the kind of event we're planning." Her words sliced cleaner than any blade. Don't fit in. As though I were a coat with the wrong cut, something out of season. My throat burned, but I swallowed hard and forced myself to nod. If I spoke, I might beg, and I wouldn't give her that. Later, when I was alone, I pulled the toast back out of the drawer. The paper was wrinkled and smudged, but the words stared up at me like strangers. To my Olivia, my greatest joy, my brightest star. I wanted to tear it in half to destroy the foolish hope it represented, but I couldn't. Instead, I folded it smaller and smaller until it was no bigger than a coin, as fragile as my pride. That night, Denise came by again. She sat at my kitchen table with her usual patience, fingers drumming against her coffee mug. "Maggie," she said, "you need to take this seriously. I've heard your name mentioned again, something about accounts tied to the wedding venue deposit." My stomach lurched. "That's not possible. I don't have money for that kind of thing." "That's exactly why it's suspicious," she said. "If your name is attached, it's because someone put it there." I wanted to deny it, to cling to the belief that Olivia's cruelty ended at humiliation, that she hadn't crossed into theft. But Denise's eyes didn't waver, and I knew she wouldn't bring this up without reason. "I can't believe she'd do that," I whispered. My voice cracked, a sound more pitiful than I wanted. "She's my daughter." Denise reached across the table, her hand warm on mine. "I know. But sometimes the people closest to us, they count on that very trust to get away with things." Her words chilled me more than any winter wind. Trust, the one thing I thought I had given freely, the one thing I believed tethered us together, was now the weapon she used against me. The next day I wandered through town like a ghost. Every storefront reminded me of something I couldn't share. The bakery displayed frosted cakes, the florist's window overflowed with roses. I thought of Olivia walking past those shops, pointing at what she wanted while I was kept invisible. My chest ached as if I had swallowed stones. I stopped at the bank, though I didn't know what I was hoping for. I asked the clerk if there were accounts in my name. The woman glanced at her screen, then her expression shifted, her smile faltering just a fraction. It was so quick most people wouldn't have noticed, but I caught it, the hesitation, the unease. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Turner," she said, her tone suddenly rehearsed. "I can't share details without proper documentation." Her words were polite, but the way she avoided my eyes told me everything. There was something there, something I wasn't supposed to see. I walked out into the bright afternoon, the air sharp in my lungs. For the first time, I understood that Olivia's betrayal wasn't just about pride or appearances. It was about survival, hers, at the cost of mine. That night, I sat alone at the kitchen table again. The house was too quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your ears until you hear your own heartbeat. I imagined Olivia standing in a bridal boutique, laughing with Ethan's family as she tried on gowns while I sat surrounded by unpaid bills and unanswered questions. I pressed my palms flat on the table, grounding myself against the rising tide of despair. I couldn't let myself drown in it. Denise's warning echoed in my ears. "If anyone calls in the debt, they'll come for you." I wasn't just excluded from the wedding. I was being set up as the collateral. The realization landed heavy, twisting my grief into something sharper. Betrayal alone might have broken me, but betrayal with consequences, betrayal that could leave me destitute, was something else entirely. I folded the toast one last time and tucked it inside my wallet, not because I still believed I would give it, but because I wanted to carry a reminder that I had once thought words could bridge the distance between us. Now I knew better. Words wouldn't save me. Proof would. The clerk's hesitation wouldn't leave me. It replayed in my head all night, that fleeting pause when her eyes darted from the screen to my face. It was the kind of pause people made when they knew something they weren't supposed to say. The kind of pause that confirmed what Denise had been warning me about something wasn't right, and it had my name on it. I woke before dawn, the house still wrapped in shadows. My chest ached as if I'd been holding my breath in my sleep. I poured coffee I didn't want and sat at the kitchen table staring at the folded toast still tucked in my wallet. I had once believed those words could carry me through the wedding day. Now they felt like a relic from a life where my daughter still loved me. Denise called mid-morning. She didn't waste time with small talk. "I made a few calls," she said quietly. "I can't say too much, but there are definitely loans and accounts that shouldn't have your name on them. Whoever did it, they covered their tracks but not well enough." My throat tightened. "So it's true. It's true," she confirmed. "I'm sorry, Maggie." The confirmation hollowed me out. I wanted to scream, to pound my fists against the table until the wood splintered, but all I managed was silence. My daughter had stolen more than my place at her wedding. She had stolen my identity, my future, my sense of safety. I thought back to all the times she asked me to sign things quickly, just the insurance papers, Mom, or just the college forms. It's fine. I never questioned her. I trusted her. And maybe in some small way I thought it was a gift, letting her feel grown, capable, important. But now I saw it for what it was: practice. Every hurried signature, every blind moment of trust had been preparing her for this. I decided I couldn't just sit in the kitchen drowning in humiliation. I went back to the bank, determined to push harder. The same clerk was there, her hands poised neatly over the keyboard. "Mrs. Turner," she greeted me with that same professional tone. "I need to know," I said, my voice shaking more than I wanted. "Are there accounts in my name that I didn't authorize? You don't have to give me details. Just tell me if I should be worried." She froze, her lips parting. For a second I thought she might refuse again. Then her eyes softened just a fraction, and she leaned closer. "Mrs. Turner, if I were you, I'd speak to someone you trust, someone who knows the law." Her voice was almost a whisper, but it carried enough weight to crush me. I nodded, thanked her, and walked out, my knees trembling. The sunlight outside was too bright, cruel against my skin. The world looked the same, cars passing, people chatting on their phones, but mine had shifted. Every step felt heavier, like walking through water. I was no longer imagining things. I was in danger. That night, I couldn't eat. I pushed food around my plate and listened to the refrigerator hum, the clock tick. I thought of Olivia in her gown, laughing with Ethan's family, celebrating a future built on a foundation she had stolen from me. I pictured the guests raising their glasses, clapping for a woman who had erased her own mother. I wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. What rose instead was a cold, hollow rage, the kind that doesn't burn, but freezes everything it touches. My hands steadied. My breath slowed. If Olivia had made me collateral, then I had no choice but to fight. Denise came over the next morning with a folder tucked under her arm. I pulled what I could, she said, her voice hushed. "It's not the full picture, but it's enough to see the outline." She spread the pages across my table, photocopies, notes, her own handwriting scrawled in the margins. The numbers blurred as I tried to read them. Loan amounts, interest rates, dates I didn't recognize. But one thing stood out: my name written clean and neat in a hand that wasn't mine. Denise's eyes flicked up to me. "I know it's hard to see, but you need to know what you're up against." I pressed my fingers against the page, tracing the stolen version of my own signature. It was like staring at a stranger wearing my face. "She really did this," I said, my voice breaking. "She did," Denise said softly. "And if you don't act soon, the debt will land on you." My chest tightened, and for a moment the room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. My daughter had not only erased me from her wedding, she had written me into her debts. She had turned me into a shield against her mistakes. I sank into the chair, staring at the spread of papers. The betrayal was complete now, not just emotional, not just symbolic. It was written in ink stamped with dates and numbers that didn't belong to me. Denise reached across the table again, her voice gentle. "You don't have to decide tonight. But Maggie, you can't stay quiet. Silence won't protect you anymore." I looked down at the toast in my wallet, the words folded into a square no bigger than my palm. Once I thought they would be my legacy, the thing I left with Olivia on her wedding day. Now they felt like a monument to a foolish mother who believed love could survive anything. I closed the wallet and set it aside. "You're right," I whispered. My voice was steady, but my heart was breaking. Silence isn't enough. The church bells rang before I reached the doors. Each chime seemed to push against my chest, echoing through my bones like a reminder you weren't invited. But I walked faster anyway, my heels clicking against the pavement, my heart pounding harder with every step. I told myself I wasn't going to interfere. I only wanted to see her. Just a glimpse of Olivia in her dress walking down the aisle, radiant in the way every bride should be. That's what I whispered as I slipped through the side door and into the back pews. That's what I repeated like a prayer as I pressed myself into the shadows. The sanctuary glowed with soft candlelight and white flowers draped across every surface. The air was heavy with perfume and roses too sweet, almost choking. Ethan's family filled the front rows, women in satin, men in tailored suits, laughter hushed but still confident. They looked like they belonged on magazine covers. And there among them was the seat that should have been mine. A perfect chair ribbon-tied marked family. Empty. The sight of it broke something inside me. My knees went weak, and for a moment I thought I might collapse right there in the aisle. That chair was more than a chair, it was proof. Proof that my daughter had carved me out of her life so thoroughly, she had left a space behind as if to remind herself of my absence. The music swelled, and heads turned toward the doors. Then Olivia appeared radiant in a gown that shimmered under the lights. She looked taller than I remembered, her chin lifted, her smile fixed in place. For a fleeting second, I let myself believe she might turn her head, scan the crowd, and notice me standing in the back. That maybe she'd falter, remember I was her mother, and regret everything she had done, but her eyes stayed forward. She floated down the aisle, arm hooked through Ethan's, both of them smiling as if the world itself bent in their favor. No hesitation, no flicker of doubt, no sign that she even remembered I existed. The priest's voice droned on vows spoken with trembling conviction. Guests dabbed at their eyes, sniffled into tissues, clutched each other's hands. I sat there in silence, invisible, my hands gripping the pew until my knuckles turned white. Every word felt like a stone dropped into my chest, heavy, sinking, relentless. When Ethan's mother leaned over to whisper to her husband, I caught the words, "Perfect day. Perfect family." My stomach twisted. Perfect except for me. The missing mother. The stain scrubbed clean. I looked again at the empty chair glowing in the candlelight and felt the weight of every sacrifice I had made the nights I worked double shifts so Olivia could have new shoes, the meals I skipped so she wouldn't go hungry, the dreams I buried so hers could grow. And now I was nothing but a shadow too shameful to sit among the people who called themselves family. A laugh rippled through the congregation as the priest fumbled his book. Even mistakes here seemed charming, light-hearted, forgivable. My mistakes, my flaws, they had made me disposable. When the kiss finally came, the applause erupted like thunder. People stood clapping, cheering, tears shining in their eyes. I stayed seated in the back, frozen, my palms pressed together as if in prayer. My lips didn't move, but inside I whispered words that tasted like ash. Goodbye, Olivia. The recessional music filled the church, triumphant and loud. Guests poured into the aisles, crowding the doors, buzzing with joy. I stayed in my seat until the last of them had left the scent of roses and perfume lingering like a cloud. Then I rose slow and unsteady and made my way to the empty chair. I touched the ribbon with trembling fingers. The satin was smooth cold against my skin. I imagined my name written there, erased in ink, but etched in absence. The chair mocked me, a monument to everything I had lost. I wanted to scream, to rip the ribbon away, to demand that anyone acknowledge me. But the church was silent now, emptied of witnesses. Only the flowers, the candles, and the echo of applause remained. So I sat down in the chair. For one brief moment, I claimed the space meant for me. I closed my eyes and imagined Olivia looking over, smiling, thanking me for being there. My chest ached with the lie, but I held on to it anyway, if only for a breath. Then I rose and left the church the way I had entered, unseen, unheard, uninvited. A ghost in my daughter's perfect day. Outside, the sky was gray clouds pressing low. I wrapped my arms around myself, shivering though the air was warm. Denise's words echoed in my mind. Silence won't protect you anymore. She had been right. Silence had made me invisible, and invisibility had made me prey. I walked home slowly. The image of that empty chair burned into my vision. I knew I would carry it with me forever, a symbol of absence, a reminder of what Olivia had done. But I also knew something else now. I wasn't just grieving. I was gathering. Every look, every hesitation, every forged line of ink, they were pieces of a puzzle I had been too afraid to assemble. But the picture was becoming clearer, and it terrified me. By the time I reached my door, my legs were shaking. I sat at the kitchen table again, staring at the stack of papers Denise had left me, my wallet, heavy with the folded toast. Between the humiliation of the empty chair and the weight of those documents, I felt split in two. A mother mourning her erasure, and a woman preparing for a fight she didn't yet understand. The night after the wedding, the house was too quiet. No music, no laughter, no clinking of glasses, just the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the clock on the wall. Somewhere across town, Olivia was probably still celebrating, bathed in applause and champagne, and here I was, sitting in my kitchen with my arms wrapped around myself, like a woman bracing against a storm that had already passed through. When the knock came, I didn't answer right away. My first thought was that it was Olivia, that she had come to gloat, or maybe to offer some hollow apology. But when I opened the door, Denise stood there clutching a worn leather folder to her chest. Her eyes told me this wasn't a social visit. "Can I come in?" she asked. I nodded, stepping aside. She placed the folder on the table and unlatched it with hands that didn't quite steady. "I pulled what I could," she said softly. "This isn't everything, but it's enough." I sat across from her, my stomach tightening. When she opened the folder, the papers fanned out like wings: contracts, loan agreements, bank statements. My name was written on almost every page. Not my handwriting, not my hand, but my name again and again. Margaret Turner, a stranger wearing my skin. I traced one with my finger, the ink smooth under my touch. "She did this," I whispered. The words didn't feel real, like I was reading lines from someone else's script. "She did," Denise said. Her voice was heavy, but her eyes were firm. "She's used your identity to secure tens of thousands of dollars. Venue deposits, catering, maybe even more. And if she defaults, they'll come for me." I finished, my throat raw. Denise nodded. I stared at the papers until the lines blurred. Every sacrifice I had made, every shift worked, every meal skipped, every dream buried, and this was what it bought me. Not gratitude, not respect. A daughter who saw me not as a mother, but as a name to be used as shield against her own debts. "I don't understand," I murmured. "Why would she—" Denise hesitated. "Because she could. Because she knew you'd trust her. And because you wouldn't fight back." Her words landed like stones. She was right. I had always been the quiet one, the one who smiled and endured, who believed love could excuse anything. I had taught Olivia that I was safe to use. My chest tightened, and for a moment I thought I might collapse. I pressed both palms against the table to steady myself, but my hands trembled. "I can't do this," I whispered. "You can," Denise said firmly, "but you need to decide how. You can confront her quietly, try to fix this without making noise. Or you can take this to someone who can stop her before it ruins you completely." I opened my mouth to answer, but another knock cut through the silence, a softer, hesitant sound. I froze. When I opened the door, Ethan stood on my porch. His suit jacket was gone, his tie loose, his face pale in the porch light. For a moment, neither of us spoke. He looked like a man standing at the edge of a cliff, too afraid to jump, too ashamed to walk away. "Maggie," he said finally, his voice low. "Can I talk to you?" I let him in, though. My stomach turned at the sight of him. He hovered near the door, his hands buried in his pockets, eyes flicking to the folder on the table. "You knew," I said. The words left my mouth before I even realized I was speaking. He flinched, his silence louder than any confession. "You knew she was using my name." I pressed, my voice rising. "You watched her erase me from her wedding, and you said nothing. You let her steal from me." His shoulders sagged. He looked like a boy caught in a lie, not a man standing by his wife. "I didn't want to cause trouble," he muttered. "Olivia said you'd understand. She said you'd want to help." I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that startled even me. "Help. By being erased, by carrying debts I never signed." He winced, but he didn't deny it. "You let her do this," I said, my voice shaking. "You let her make me the ghost at her wedding, and now you want me to believe you're sorry." He didn't answer. He just stood there, silent, eyes fixed on the floor. Denise rose, her voice sharp. "You don't get to play neutral anymore, Ethan. Silence isn't protection. It's complicity." He glanced at her, then at me, his mouth opening and closing like he was searching for words that didn't exist. Finally, he shook his head. I can't go against her." I felt something cold settle inside me. I had hoped foolishly maybe that Ethan would be the crack in Olivia's armor, the proof that not everyone had turned against me. But now I saw the truth. He wasn't an ally. He was another shield she hid behind. "Then leave," I said quietly. My voice was steady, even as my heart shattered. "If you won't stand with me, then you don't belong in this house." He hesitated, his eyes searching mine for forgiveness. But there was none left to give. He turned and walked out the door, closing behind him with a soft finality. The silence that followed was suffocating. I sank into the chair, staring at the papers spread across the table. My name stared back at me from every page, proof of how thoroughly I had been erased from one life and written into another. Denise placed a hand on my shoulder. "I know it hurts, but this is the proof you needed. She can't deny this." I nodded slowly, though my throat was too tight to speak. Proof. That was what I had now. Proof of Olivia's betrayal. Proof of Ethan's cowardice. Proof that silence was no longer an option. I gathered the papers into a stack, my hands finally steady. For the first time, I felt something shift inside me. The grief was still there, heavy and raw, but beneath it was something sharper. Resolve. Olivia had written me out of her wedding, but she had written me into her debts, and I would not go quietly. The reception hall was bright enough to make my eyes ache. Chandeliers glimmered overhead, casting white light across linen-draped tables and crystal glasses filled with champagne. The sound of laughter ricocheted off the walls, too loud, too polished, the kind of laughter that belonged to people who believed nothing could touch them. I hadn't planned to come. After Ethan left my house, shame burned in me so hot, I thought I'd never step into another room filled with his family. But Denise insisted. "You need to see her as she is," she told me, her hand gripping mine. "Hear what she says when she thinks you're not listening. Then you'll know what kind of fight you're walking into." So I went. Not as a guest, not even as a mother, but as a shadow sliding along the edges of the celebration. Olivia was the center of the room, her laughter ringing like silver bells, her dress shimmering as she spun from one guest to another. She looked like a queen in her court, and the guests obliged, showering her with admiration. "Stunning bride, perfect day. You two are going to go so far." Each phrase landed like a pebble in my gut. They didn't see what I saw. The girl who had carved her mother out of her life, who had used that same mother's name as a stepping stone for her own climb. They saw only the glitter, the curated smile, the flawless surface. I lingered near the back, pretending to study the buffet table. My ears picked up fragments of conversation, each one sharper than the last. She did such a wonderful job planning everything. Yes, and without her mother's influence, it all feels so much more elegant. My chest tightened. My name was erased, but my absence was celebrated. I reached for a glass of champagne, though I had no taste for it. The bubbles stung my throat, bitter and sharp. Across the room, Olivia leaned into a group of Ethan's relatives, her voice pitched high with pride. It was a lot of work, she said, loud enough to carry. But I wanted it perfect. No distractions, no awkward moments. The laughter that followed stung more than the champagne. My fists clenched at my sides, nails biting into my palms. No distractions, no awkward moments. I knew exactly who she meant. Denise appeared beside me, her presence grounding. "You hear that?" she whispered. I nodded, my vision swimming. She's proud of it. Proud of cutting me out. Denise's jaw tightened. "And proud of using you, too. Don't forget that." My heart hammered, torn between rage and grief. I wanted to march into the center of the room, slam the papers down in front of her guests, and scream the truth. This perfect day was built on a lie. On me. But my body stayed rooted, trembling with the weight of choice. A waiter passed by offering hors d'oeuvres on a silver tray. I shook my head, but Olivia's voice cut through again, this time softer, almost conspiratorial. "Honestly, it's better this way. She would have only embarrassed me. I couldn't risk it. Not today." Gasps of sympathy circled her like a chorus. One woman patted her arm. "Oh, darling, you did the right thing. You're starting fresh with your new family. That's what matters." My vision blurred. New family. As though I had never existed. I turned toward the door, needing air, but Denise caught my wrist. "Maggie," she said firmly, "this is the moment. You can stay quiet, let them keep their illusion, or you can start breaking it. Which one is it going to be?" Her words pressed against my ribs, squeezing the air out of me. My pulse pounded in my ears. I pictured myself stepping into the light, my voice steady, the room falling silent as I laid the papers down. I imagined Olivia's smile faltering, Ethan's head dropping, the guests gasping in shock. For once, the truth would belong to me. But then I saw another image. Olivia's eyes flashing with anger, her voice rising, accusing me of jealousy, of sabotage. The crowd turning against me, shaking their heads, murmuring about the bitter mother who couldn't let go. I saw myself leaving in disgrace, erased not just by her lies, but by my own failed attempt at truth. I swallowed hard. "Not yet," I whispered. Denise frowned. "If you wait too long, she'll bury you in this. You know that." "I know," I said, my voice breaking, "but I need the right moment. I need them to see her for who she really is. If I speak now, they'll only see me." The tears finally came hot and sudden, slipping down my cheeks before I could stop them. I turned away, wiping them with the back of my hand. "I can't do it. Not like this." Denise sighed, but she didn't argue. She just squeezed my hand, her grip strong enough to keep me from collapsing. "Then hold on," she said, "but be ready. Because the longer you wait, the harder it will hit when it comes." I nodded, though my chest ached. The chandeliers glittered overhead. The music swelled, and Olivia laughed again, the kind of laugh that used to fill our little kitchen back when she was a child, and I was her whole world. Now it was a weapon proof that she had found joy in my erasure. I slipped out of the hall before anyone could see me cry. The night air was cool, the stars blurred by my tears. My steps echoed on the pavement, but inside I felt hollow, my body moving without me. I had chosen silence again, but it no longer felt like protection. It felt like poison. The night after the reception, I couldn't sleep. My body was exhausted, but my mind churned, dragging me back to the chandelier light, to Olivia's laughter, to the strangers who patted her arm and told her she'd done the right thing by leaving me out. Their words replayed until they carved grooves into my chest. Near midnight, I rose and wandered the house like a ghost. My steps took me to Olivia's old bedroom, the one that had sat untouched since she moved out. I opened the door slowly, as if I might find her sitting cross-legged on the bed with a textbook open the way she had as a teenager. Instead, the room smelled faintly of dust and old perfume. The walls still bore the faded outlines where posters had once hung. The dresser was bare except for a jewelry box she'd left behind. I don't know what I was searching for. Maybe a piece of her I could still claim. Maybe proof that somewhere deep down she still loved me. I opened the top drawer of the dresser. At first, I found nothing but scraps, old receipts, hair ties, a dried-up tube of lip gloss. But beneath them lay a folded envelope yellowed at the edges. My heart kicked hard against my ribs as I pulled it out. On the front, in Olivia's loopy handwriting, were the words, For Ethan. The paper trembled in my hands as I opened it. Ethan. Sometimes I feel embarrassed when Mom comes around. She doesn't fit with the people I want to know, and I hate admitting that. I love her, but I don't want her to ruin things for me. I want my life to feel different, cleaner. I want you to understand that if I keep her away, it's not because I don't care. It's because I don't want to be pulled back into that world. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. My throat closed, and I sank onto the bed, the paper crumpling in my fist. Embarrassed, cleaner, pulled back. I had spent years scraping together a life for her, sacrificing everything I had, and all the while she had been ashamed of me. She had written it down like a confession, not knowing I would ever see it. That shame had festered for years, hidden beneath every sharp word, every glance away when I walked into a room. It hadn't begun with the wedding. It had been growing like mold in the walls of our relationship unseen, but spreading until it consumed everything. I pressed the letter to my chest and rocked forward, sobs shaking my body. But even as I wept, something inside me hardened. Grief gave way to clarity. This wasn't about one cruel choice or one forged signature. It was about years of quiet resentment about a daughter who had decided long ago that I wasn't good enough to stand beside her. I rose slowly, wiping my face with the back of my hand. My reflection in the mirror startled me. Red eyes, hair disheveled, cheeks wet. But beneath the grief, I saw something steadier than before, a look I hadn't recognized in myself for years. Resolve. I placed the letter back in its envelope, smoothing it flat. It would stay with me now, a piece of evidence more damning than any forged document. Proof not just of financial betrayal, but of emotional abandonment. When I returned to the kitchen, Denise was waiting. She had insisted on staying the night just in case. She looked up from her coffee, her face lined with concern. "You found something," she said. I handed her the envelope. She read quickly, her eyes darkening with each line. When she finished, she set it down carefully. "So it wasn't just about money. She's been ashamed of you for years." The words hurt, but hearing them spoken aloud also freed me. I no longer had to pretend this was temporary, that Olivia's cruelty was born of nerves or stress. It was who she had chosen to become. Denise reached across the table, her hand warm on mine. "You don't deserve this." "I know," I said. My voice surprised me. It didn't tremble. It was steady, low, certain. "I won't let her erase me." For a moment, silence hung between us. Not the heavy, suffocating silence that had followed me before, but something different. A silence filled with decision. I pulled the toast from my wallet, unfolded it carefully. The words stared back at me. To my Olivia, my greatest joy, my brightest star. They felt like they belonged to another woman, a mother who still believed love could be enough. I tore the paper down the middle, the sound sharp in the quiet kitchen. Then I tore it again and again until the words were nothing but confetti in my hands. Denise's eyes widened, but she didn't stop me. She only nodded. I brushed the scraps into the trash. "No more speeches," I said softly. "No more silence." For the first time, the words felt true. The morning after I found Olivia's letter, I woke with a weight in my chest that felt different than before. It wasn't grief this time. It was urgency, a pressure that told me waiting any longer would cost me more than dignity. Denise insisted on taking me back to the reception hall. "People always talk more freely once the formalities are over," she said. "And if you're going to expose her, you need more than papers. You need voices." I didn't want to go. The thought of walking into that place again, into a space that had celebrated my absence, made my stomach knot. But she was right. Silence had kept me a ghost. Proof alone might not be enough, not if Olivia twisted the story first. So I went. The hall was quieter now, though clusters of guests still lingered. Champagne flutes clinked. Laughter spilled down the corridors. The scent of roses and perfume had dulled, leaving behind something musty like wilted flowers left too long in water. I moved carefully, hugging the edges of the crowd, letting Denise drift ahead. My eyes found Olivia across the room, her hand linked with Ethan's, her smile polished for every camera that flashed. She looked untouchable, the golden bride basking in the afterglow of her perfect day. I turned away before my chest cracked open again. That's when I heard them voices, low but sharp, drifting from just beyond the archway to the side hall. She married up, that's for sure. Yes, but at what cost? Everyone knows those accounts weren't hers. Poor Ethan. He doesn't realize he's tied to a sinking ship. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. Her mother. What's her name again, Margaret? They say she's footing the bill without even knowing it. A scoff. Typical. The girl's clever, I'll give her that. Ruthless, though. Cold-blooded. The words sliced into me. I pressed my back against the wall, trembling, every muscle straining to stay quiet. My cheeks burned with shame, but beneath it was something hotter, sharper. They knew. They all knew. Olivia hadn't just betrayed me, she had flaunted it, used me as currency, as gossip to entertain Ethan's wealthy family. For a moment I wanted to burst into the hallway, confront them, demand they say it to my face, but I didn't. I stayed still, letting their words sink in, carving themselves into me like scars, because now I had something stronger than documents. I had witnesses' proof that her betrayal wasn't just in ink. It was in whispers, in reputations, in the way people already spoke of me, as if I were the fool at the center of her scheme. When I finally stepped away, Denise caught my arm. What happened? I swallowed hard, my voice low. They know. Ethan's family knows. They were laughing about it, calling her ruthless. They said I was footing the bill without even realizing. Denise's eyes darkened. Then it's worse than I thought. My hands shook, but my voice steadied. No, it's clearer than ever. I can't let this stand. She's already turned me into a ghost. If I stay silent any longer, she'll turn me into the punchline, too. We left the hall, my steps quicker than before, my body thrumming with restless energy. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting to what Olivia had done. I was planning. That night, I sat at my kitchen table again, the documents spread before me, the letter beside them. I read them until the numbers blurred, until Olivia's words about being embarrassed repeated in my head like a chant. I thought of the guests' laughter, of Ethan's bowed head, of the empty chair at the church. Each memory was a brick stacking higher, building a wall that cornered me into one inevitable choice. I couldn't erase what Olivia had done, but I could refuse to let her rewrite the story. When Denise spoke, her voice was steady. "You're ready." I nodded. My throat burned, but the words came clear. "I'll find a lawyer. I'll make it official." She forged my name, and I won't let her get away with it. The decision settled in me like iron, heavy, unyielding. For the first time since the wedding began, I felt the ground under my feet again. I looked at the scraps of my torn toast in the trash, at the proofs scattered across my table, at the letter folded neatly like a scar pressed flat. My grief hadn't disappeared, but it had hardened into something Olivia hadn't counted on: resolve. The lawyer's office was smaller than I expected. No mahogany desk, no shelves of heavy books. Just a plain room with a desk, 2 chairs, and blinds drawn against the morning sun. The air smelled faintly of coffee and copier ink. Denise sat beside me, her hand steady on her purse. Across from us, a man in his 50s with thinning hair and wire-rimmed glasses adjusted a stack of papers. His voice was calm, professional, but not unkind. "Mrs. Turner," he said, folding his hands, "why don't you start from the beginning?" The words stuck in my throat. For days I had carried the truth like a stone, pressing against my chest, too heavy to speak aloud. Every time I tried, shame silenced me. What kind of mother accuses her daughter of theft? What kind of woman admits her own child betrayed her so deeply? I looked at Denise. She nodded once, firm and certain. I drew in a breath, the air sharp in my lungs. My voice cracked when it came out, but I didn't stop. My daughter forged my name. The words echoed in the small office louder than they should have been. My chest shook, but for the first time the weight shifted. Saying it didn't destroy me. It freed me. The lawyer didn't flinch. He only nodded and slid a legal pad toward me. "Tell me everything you know." So I did. I told him about the invitations that never came, the empty chair at the church, the clerk's hesitation, the folder Denise had placed on my kitchen table. I handed him the documents, pages upon pages of my name written by someone else's hand. I showed him the letter Olivia had written to Ethan, the proof of her long-standing shame. When I finished, my throat was raw, my hands trembling. The lawyer studied the papers in silence, flipping through them carefully. Finally, he looked up. "This is serious," he said. "If these signatures were forged, she's committed fraud, identity theft. Depending on the amounts it could carry, severe consequences." Consequences. The word landed like thunder. For months it felt like Olivia's choices only ever carried consequences for me. For the first time I heard someone say it out loud, they could fall on her. My stomach twisted. She was still my daughter. The thought of her in handcuffs of her name splashed across legal records made my chest ache. But then I remembered the gossip in the hall, the cruel pride in her voice, the way she smiled at her new family as if I were already buried. I remembered Ethan's silence, the empty chair, the toast I had torn into scraps. "She did this to me," I whispered. "If I don't stop her, she'll ruin me completely." The lawyer's eyes softened. "Sometimes the people closest to us cause the deepest harm. That doesn't mean you have to let it stand." Denise leaned closer, her voice low but firm. "Maggie, this isn't about revenge. It's about survival. You can't let her keep using your name." I nodded, my chest tightening. "What do I need to do?" He outlined the steps, affidavits, official reports, a formal claim that the signatures weren't mine, words I had never imagined attaching to my daughter. But I listened carefully, each instruction carving a path I knew I had to follow. When he finished, he handed me a pen. "This will start the process. Are you ready to sign?" The pen felt heavy in my hand. For years I had signed papers without hesitation, trusting Olivia to tell me the truth about what they meant. Now I hesitated for a different reason. Signing this wasn't just paperwork. It was a declaration. It was choosing myself over her. I thought of the little girl who used to slip drawings under my pillow, who clung to me in grocery store aisles. For a moment I saw her face superimposed on the woman who had cut me out of her life. My hand shook, but I pressed the pen to paper anyway. I signed my real name, my true name, the one Olivia had stolen. When I set the pen down, Denise squeezed my hand. "You did it," she whispered. The lawyer collected the papers, stacking them neatly. "We'll begin immediately." On the walk home, the autumn wind stung my cheeks. Denise walked beside me, her arm brushing mine. "How do you feel?" she asked. I searched for the right word. Lighter in some ways, but also hollow, like I had torn something out of myself. "Like I've finally told the truth," I said softly, "even if it kills me." That night I sat at the kitchen table again. The documents were gone now, left in the lawyer's hands. But the emptiness of the table felt just as heavy. I thought about Olivia, about the look on her face when she found out what I had done. Would she rage? Would she plead? Or would she cut me out entirely this time, not just from her wedding, but from her life forever I didn't know? And for the first time, I realized it didn't matter, because I had spoken the forbidden words. I had broken the silence. And silence, I knew now, had been the real enemy all along. The after-party buzzed like a hive. Laughter rang out, music pulsed through the walls, and glasses clinked in steady rhythm. Ethan's family had spared no expense. Champagne towers, glittered hors d'oeuvres floated by on silver trays, and the dance floor glowed under warm lights. It was everything Olivia had ever wanted a world scrubbed clean of me. But tonight, I wasn't a ghost. Tonight, I carried proof. Denise walked beside me as we entered the hall, her hand brushing mine in silent reassurance. My stomach churned, but my steps didn't falter. The folder of documents felt heavy in my purse, heavier than any burden I'd ever carried. But this time, it was also a weapon. I spotted Olivia near the center of the room, laughing, radiant in her gown, though the night had stretched long. Ethan stood at her side, his smile strained but intact, nodding as guests praised them. She looked untouchable, golden adored, until she saw me. Her smile froze. For the briefest moment, fear flickered in her eyes, quick, sharp, almost imperceptible. Then she smoothed it away, tilting her head as if amused. "Mom!" she called, her voice bright and mocking. "I didn't realize you'd be joining us." Conversations around her stilled. Heads turned. Guests craned their necks to look at me. The mother who wasn't supposed to be here, the woman erased from the script. I stepped forward, my voice steady, though my hands trembled. I wasn't invited, but I think everyone here deserves to know why. A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Olivia laughed a brittle sound. "Oh, Mom, please. This isn't the time. This is exactly the time," I said louder now. My throat burned, but the words came clear. "Because your perfect day was built on a lie. On me." Gasps broke through the silence. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting to the floor. Olivia's face tightened. "Don't do this," she hissed, her voice sharp beneath the sugar. "You'll only embarrass yourself." I reached into my purse and pulled out the folder. My hands didn't shake as I laid the documents on the nearest table. Pages fluttered open: bank loans, catering contracts, deposits. My name scrawled across each one. My name, but not my hand. "She forged my signature," I said, my voice ringing in the hall. "She stole my name to fund this wedding. Every flower, every dress, every glass of champagne, it's all in my name, not hers." The crowd shifted, whispers rising like wind through trees. A man leaned forward, squinting at the papers. Another guest covered her mouth with her hand. Olivia's mask cracked. Her smile faltered, her eyes flashing. "That's ridiculous," she snapped. "She doesn't know what she's talking about." Denise stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "I work at the clerk's office. I've seen the documents myself. Those signatures aren't hers. They're forged." The murmurs grew louder, sharper. Guests glanced at one another, at Ethan, at Olivia. The perfect picture began to fracture. Olivia's cheeks flushed red. "She's lying. She's jealous. She couldn't stand being left out, so she made this up to ruin me." I lifted the letter, the one Olivia had written to Ethan years ago. My hand steadied as I unfolded it. "She's been ashamed of me for a long time. She wrote it down, said I'd ruin things for her, said she didn't want to be pulled back into my world. And now she's proven it. She erased me from her wedding, and she used my name to pay for it." The silence that followed was suffocating. Every eye in the room fixed on Olivia. Her face crumpled, anger and panic colliding. Ethan finally spoke, his voice low. "It's true." The room gasped. Olivia spun toward him, her eyes wide. "What are you doing?" He swallowed hard, his shoulders sagging. "I knew. I didn't stop it. I thought it would be fine." The crowd erupted: gasps, whispers, accusations. A woman shook her head in disgust. A man muttered, "Unbelievable." Olivia's hands trembled. "You promised," she hissed at Ethan. But it was too late. The applause, the laughter, the carefully curated perfection had collapsed into chaos. I stood straighter, my chest tight but unbroken. For the first time, I wasn't silent. For the first time, the truth belonged to me. "Enjoy your perfect day," I said softly, my voice carrying in the stunned quiet. "But know this, it was never yours to begin with. You built it on me, and I'm done letting you." Then I turned and walked out, the murmurs chasing me into the night. The night air clung to me as I stepped outside, my pulse still pounding. Behind me, the after-party hummed with chaos, whispers snapping like branches. Olivia's voice rising in panic, Ethan's silence breaking into stammered excuses. I didn't look back. For a moment I thought I might never breathe again. Then the cool wind filled my lungs, sharp and cleansing. But I hadn't seen the end of it. Denise found me first. Her heels clicked against the pavement as she hurried out. "They're unraveling in there," she said, her voice low, urgent. Ethan admitted everything. "People are furious. Some are leaving already." I closed my eyes. Part of me wanted to feel triumphant, but what I felt instead was hollow, like a bell struck too hard. I had exposed the truth, yes. I had broken my silence. But at what cost? The doors burst open behind us, and Olivia staggered out, her dress dragging against the ground, her mascara streaked down her cheeks. She looked nothing like the radiant bride she had been hours earlier. She looked like a child lost in a storm. "Mom," she gasped, her voice raw, "how could you do this to me?" Her words slammed into me. To me. Not "what have I done to you?" Not "I'm sorry." Just accusation, as if she were the victim. "You did this to yourself," I said quietly. Ethan followed his tie, loosened, his face pale. He didn't meet my eyes. "I didn't want it to go this far," he muttered. "Then you should have spoken sooner," Denise snapped. He flinched. "I thought it would work out. You thought wrong," I cut in. My voice surprised me. It was sharp, steady, carrying through the night. "You both thought you could erase me. But you can't erase the truth." Olivia's hands shook as she clutched her dress. "They'll never forgive me," she whispered. I almost pitied her. Almost. But then I remembered the empty chair, the forged signatures, the gossip in the hall. I remembered the letter where she confessed her shame in me. Pity turned to stone in my chest. "That's not my burden anymore," I said. Her face crumpled. For the first time, she had no defense, no mask, no performance. Only a woman exposed, stripped bare, before the world she had tried so hard to impress. Guests spilled out of the hall in waves, their voices sharp with judgment. "I can't believe it. Disgraceful. Poor woman, her own daughter." They glanced at me with a mix of sympathy and curiosity, then turned away, shaking their heads. The perfect day had collapsed, and they no longer wanted to be part of the wreckage. Ethan tried to gather Olivia, murmuring something I couldn't hear. She jerked away from him, her sobs rising, her hands clutching at her gown as if she could hold the pieces together by force. But the illusion was gone. No amount of satin or champagne could hide the truth now. I stood still, watching it all unfold. Denise touched my arm. "You did it," she said softly. I nodded, though the victory felt strange. I had imagined this moment so many times, exposing Olivia, watching her crumble, reclaiming my name. I thought it would feel like justice. Instead, it felt like ashes. The last of the guests drifted away, their laughter replaced by whispers of scandal. The music inside had faltered, the party dying faster than it began. Olivia sank onto the steps, her body shaking with silent sobs. Ethan hovered useless, a man who had chosen cowardice and was now drowning in it. I turned away. I couldn't watch her break, not tonight. My heart was already too heavy. On the walk home, Denise kept close, but neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't suffocating this time. It was thick with understanding. When I reached my kitchen, I sat at the table again. The space was familiar, grounding the hum of the refrigerator steady. I thought of the papers now safe in the lawyer's office, of the letter folded in my drawer, of Olivia's voice echoing in the night. "How could you do this to me?" I whispered into the empty room. "You did it to yourself." The words didn't erase the ache, but they steadied me. I had been erased from her wedding. But tonight I had written myself back into the story, not as the mother she wanted to hide, but as the woman who refused to vanish. The morning after felt strange, too quiet, too ordinary. The sun poured through the kitchen window the same way it always had, lighting the same worn table where I'd eaten thousands of meals. The world hadn't changed, not the refrigerator's hum, not the clock's tick, not the sound of neighbors leaving for work. But I had. The folder was gone now, resting in my lawyer's office. The papers that had once haunted me were finally in the hands of someone who could defend me. My name, once stolen, was being restored piece by piece. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt a hollow ache, like the aftermath of a storm that had torn through and left silence in its wake. I sat with a cup of coffee cooling between my hands. On the counter, the trash can still held the scraps of my torn toast. Tiny white confetti, the last fragments of a speech I would never give. I thought about unfolding them, trying to tape the pieces back together. But that would have been another lie. Those words belonged to a woman who still believed love was enough. That woman was gone. My phone buzzed. A message from Denise. "Thinking of you. Proud of you." I smiled faintly. She had been my anchor through all of this, the one steady voice reminding me I wasn't crazy. I wasn't invisible. I wasn't weak. Without her, I might still be sitting here practicing smiles in the mirror, waiting for an invitation that never came. The doorbell rang. My chest tightened. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, Olivia stood there. Her hair was unpinned, her eyes red, her makeup streaked. She looked smaller, somehow fragile, in a way I hadn't seen since she was a child. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "Mom," she whispered finally. The word hit me like a blade. After all she'd done, after the humiliation and the theft and the lies, she still said it like it belonged to me. I stepped aside, but she didn't move. She just stood there, wringing her hands. I didn't think you'd fight back," she said. "I didn't think you'd steal from me," I replied. Her eyes filled with tears. I I just wanted a different life, one that didn't remind me of everything we went through." Her voice cracked, and for the briefest second I saw the little girl again. The one who used to slip drawings under my pillow, who clung to me in grocery stores, who once believed I could fix anything with a smile. But then I remembered the empty chair, the forged signatures, the laughter of strangers as they whispered about me. "You wanted a life without me," I said. She flinched but didn't deny it. "I don't know how to fix this," she whispered. Neither did I. And maybe that was the truest thing either of us had said in years. "I don't need you to fix it," I said softly. "I just need you to stop pretending I don't exist." Her lips trembled. She nodded once, then turned and walked away. She didn't come inside. She didn't hug me. She just left her dress swishing against the pavement, her figure shrinking down the street until she disappeared around the corner. I stood in the doorway long after she was gone. My chest ached, but my shoulders felt lighter. That night I sat at the kitchen table again. No toast in my lap this time. No forged papers spread before me. Just me, my coffee, and the quiet hum of my house. I wasn't celebrating. There was no joy in losing your daughter, no triumph in being right about her betrayal. But there was dignity. My name was mine again. My voice was mine again. Olivia had erased me from her wedding, but she hadn't erased me from my life, and that I realized was enough.